Hello and welcome to Fat Kid Fit Bod. I'm your friendly neighborhood trainer, Noah Sage Zimmerman. I'm a professional personal trainer based in Los Angeles, California, and I help men and women build bodies that look and feel strong. This podcast will focus not just on physical health, but also mental health and the challenges that make it hard to prioritize your health. I'm here to tell you how you can eat delicious meals, travel, work, build strong relationships, be social, and live the life you want, all while building and maintaining a body you love. With the help of other professionals and people that prioritize health, I'm giving away my best practices and reviewing emerging research in health and fitness so you can feel your best, look your best, and live life to the fullest. All right, everyone, welcome to episode 5 of Fat Kid Fit Bod. Today we have our guest is Chloe Catherine. She is a dynamic eating psychology coach who is revolutionizing how we achieve and experience health. Her work dives into not just what someone eats, but who they are as an eater and how that impacts their body's metabolic rate. A teacher of food freedom and doing the deeper inner work to find peace with food and body. Chloe's work has impacted people from around the world. So if you would please join me in welcoming Chloe. Thank you. That's our live. That's our live audience. Of course. So Chloe and I know each other back from high school. It's been about 10 years since we have spoken. So I got very excited when her profile came across my feed on Instagram, and I knew she would be an amazing guest to have on. So my first question is what do you do? And besides, I just read that, but how did you get started into it? Your story.
Yeah, so I was telling you before when we were chatting, kind of pre-podcast, that I dealt with an eating disorder, multiple eating disorders, actually, kind of all growing up. I thought I kind of started my eating disorder journey at 14. My mom kind of made it apparent to me the other day that I showed a lot of signs of disordered eating come about 12 years old. And then I think just a lot of societal pressures to look a certain way really got to me by the time I was like in 9th grade. And I remember it started out as something very innocent, right? It was like, I'm going to lose a couple pounds, right? But the only way I knew to lose weight back then, because I was very uneducated and stuck in a culture that was all just about restriction and depriving yourself, I just didn't eat. That literally was how I was like, I'm going to lose weight. I'm just like going to eat like a half a banana a day and that's it. And then I'm going to start exercising like crazy. And so I started doing that and dropped weight pretty quickly. And I pretty soon after was diagnosed with anorexia. And I went through this like long battle with anorexia, which then morphed into, or I should say, what got added onto it was orthorexia, which is a fixation on clean eating. So if someone was to, give me a plate of food and there was like bread on it and I don't eat bread. I do now, but saying like back then I was like, I don't eat bread. It's the
Bread
devil.
Is life.
I would literally get so anxious that I would have to like throw the whole plate away. And yeah, so it's a addiction to purity. It's addiction to that, like, this has to be perfect, whatever that means. And what's really interesting with orthorexia is that it's different for every single person, and every single person also can have it evolve and change. So there was a time where it was keto, whereas like meat is the best thing ever and you shouldn't eat any sugar. And then it transformed and shifted into veganism and like, oh my gosh, you should never eat meat and like carbs are the answer, right? So it's very interesting to kind of just see how it just always switched depending on what my mind was kind of saying was good or bad. And then on top of that, it morphed into exercise addiction, where it was like at the peak, probably 7 hours of straight, hard physical training a day, every single day.
Was this like cardio, weights?
It was a little bit of everything. I was a huge swimmer, biker, lots of weights, kickboxing. I did so much stuff, but I would like take my bike out and I would go on just like a random Tuesday, just like do 100-mile ride, just randomly, and then I'd probably like go to the gym after that to go to a class. So it was really me just being super, super uncomfortable in my body and always thinking that the solution was to lose more weight. Even when I got to a super low weight, I still thought that the solution to my health and my happiness and just joy in life was to lose more weight. And it was a big wake-up call when I realized that it was actually destroying my life and not giving me happiness.
What was that aha moment for you that made you realize, like, this is not the way?
Yeah, it was like sometime in my 20s. I can't remember the exact year, but I remember it was my birthday, and I had just come back from a trip. I grew up kind of part-time in Costa Rica, and so I was there with a couple of my friends and with my sister, and I was vegan at the time. I actually was raw vegan at the time, so I had gone even more extreme. Raw veganism is like zero cooked food, so at least the vegan diet, you have like beans and quinoa and like stuff like that and oil. Raw vegan is really just raw vegetables and fruit. No salt, no oil, nothing like that. And I just sat there and watched my sister become best friends with my friends. And I just noticed that I was being isolated from everything because they would wake up and they would want to have breakfast together. And I was like out on a run and then would come home and like try and like make my own little weird concoction of food. And I came home from that trip and it was also like birthday. So it was kind of a lot of things coming together. There was like a big kind of time of reflection and then reflecting on the trip. And I remember waking up that morning on my birthday and being like, I want to have kids and I want to be a woman and I want to like actually have friends and live my life to the fullest. And at this point, I had lost my period when I was like 13. So I didn't have a period for 11 years.
Wow.
11 years I didn't have a period. Which for a woman, that is absolutely, I mean, it is insane and is super unhealthy.
Yeah.
And I was like, wow, look at the life that you have created for yourself. And I kind of just woke up and was like, that's it. I'm done. I'm not going to create this life for myself anymore. I know that I can have a better life. I know that there's this like vibrant personality within me that's just been hidden for so many years. And I was just ready to let her shine. And so I went on this like beautiful journey of literally getting rid of all dietary labels. And I had to kind of go through this extreme process of just eating. I mean, probably upwards of like 8,000 calories a day, just to get my body back up to a good place and to get my hormones all functioning and normal. And I took 8 months off of exercise. So I had to just eat, rest, and repeat, and then learn how to just deal with the body changes, which was a real big time of like understanding my true value and worth as a person and understanding that I've put so much pressure on how I look like my whole life and that there's so much more to me as a person and there's so much more that makes me attractive than just how my body looks. And it ended up being a beautiful journey, a painful journey, really long, but at the end of the day, really beautiful. And so now kind of for work, this is what I do. I help girls get their period back and I help them develop a really healthy relationship with food, with exercise, and with their body.
I love that. And I think so many people hearing this story will find so much inspiration from it. I do wonder, so this kind of leads me into my next question. How does a menstrual cycle affect the type of training a woman should do? Like intensity, volume, type, and before that, I guess I should say, is that obviously this type of dieting, this extreme dieting, exercise, does things to, and not just a man's body, but even more intense things to a woman's body. And it's not healthy to any extent for women to go that far and lose their period. So actually, answer that question first. I'll ask that question first. How does a menstrual cycle affect the type of training a woman should do?
Yeah, totally. There's a couple of things I want to say here. First off, are you familiar with what the vital signs are?
I'm not.
Okay, so we have 4 vital signs, which is like the things that when you go up to a doctor, they're going to check these first. It's like blood pressure, heart rate, like body temperature, those type of things. That tells us kind of how stable someone is and are they in like a cardiac arrest? Like what's happening? Like where's their blood pressure at? All of that.
I thought these were like vital signs of a menstrual cycle. And I was like, nope, I have no idea.
Well, so we have these 4 vital signs, but as women, we have a 5th vital sign, and that is our period. And our period tells us a lot about our health, like a lot. If you're having extreme PMS, if you're having like endometriosis like periods, PCOS, all that type of stuff is just simply telling us where the state of our health is. And so it's actually, when you understand that, it's a great thing to have, because it's a very clear indicator of if something is off and if something is wrong. And in this day and age where so many people are stressed, especially women, the menstrual cycle's going to be affected by that. And so it's like, whoa, hold on, okay, menstrual cycle's late, or it's early, or I didn't ovulate, or like, what's happening here? And so with training, we have these kind of 4 phases of the menstrual cycle, which is kind of similar to the 4 seasons. We have winter, which is like the period, fall, which is the follicular phase, summer, ovulation, and then luteal phase is spring, and then you go through the whole, luteal phase is fall, and then you go through the whole cycle again. And this is kind of this evolution that happens in our body every single month. And we need to be paying attention to that. And what happens is, in this day and age, we kind of just, we kind of just override all of that, what's going on with our hormones. Yeah. And so what's happening is, we're trying to live in, and now I'm not blaming patriarchy or anything like this, but we're living in a world where it's go, 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 do, which works really well more for a man's body. But for a woman's body, we're like, whoa, we just hit the luteal phase, we need to slow down. But because we're trying to keep up with everyone, we're trying to climb the ladder, we're trying to like make more money, do all of this, we're just continually just overriding these hormonal signals that are telling us, hey, slow down here. And so we're in this kind of gym obsessed culture. A lot of people are what I like to call gym junkies. And I love the gym, first off. Like, I do love the gym, and I have a healthy relationship with it now. But what I see is that a lot of these women, they go and they feel this pressure to work out. And it's almost this like, I'm holier than thou if I worked out more days than you. And like, oh, you rested today? Like, no, that's not good. Which is a really toxic mentality, especially when, again, we're a woman who's dealing with these hormonal cycles. Because what happens is, if your body switches into the luteal phase, which is when estrogen drops, progesterone is rising, the body is literally calling for you to slow down. It's like, we have a lot of things happening. This is your time to be a little bit less social. Your time to kind of, it's the typical PMS time of like, go eat chocolate, watch Netflix, and like wear your pajamas. But there's an actual like benefit to that, is that your body's asking you to take a break here and then go through this whole menstrual cycle process, and then come out in spring and be really happy, go work out, go do all of that, and then do this again. It keeps us out of burnout, which is a really beautiful part of this whole cycle. Because what I see in my with my clientele is these women are just 24/7 going 7 days a week, every week in the year for multiple years on end, and they never take a moment to slow down because they feel the pressure to continue to work out, continue to go to the gym, continue to reach for these body goals, and then they end up with RED-S, which is relative energy deficiency in sport, which is something that really affects men as well, so we can talk about that too. They end up with amenorrhea, which is a lack of a menstrual cycle. They end up with adrenal fatigue, digestive issues, hair loss, osteoporosis. They end up with all of these things. And then they come to me and they're like, I thought I was healthy. I'm like, there was nothing healthy about overriding your body signals, ever. Like, ever.
I mean,
and so
I just learned so much. You did. I learned so much about that. But so in each cycle, what type of training should someone be doing?
Yeah, so follicular phase, which is, so menstrual cycle, we call it CD1, the first day of your period is cycle day 1.
Okay.
So around like 4 or 5 days after that, when you stopped bleeding, you're officially in the follicular phase. And that is the phase that your hormones actually look more similar to a man's. You have estrogen and progesterone pretty low at that point. And that's a great time, like if you're going to do a race or if you're going to try and like PR on something, it's a great time to really push yourself because you have a lot of energy and you have a lot of strength and a lot of stamina. And so that's a great time to really train really hard. Same with ovulation. That's when kind of progesterone is rising, but we tend to feel like women tend to feel pretty good when they're ovulating. A lot of high energy. They feel very like magnetic, which makes sense because ovulation is synonymous with getting pregnant. So it's like you gotta, evolutionarily speaking, you're trying to attract a mate doing those like 4 or 5 day window. And so a lot of women feel very sexy, very like high sex drive, very just, they feel good. That's also a good time to like work out. But you may notice that right after ovulation, that kind of drops, and it's better to start focusing more on like the yoga and the walking and maybe going out in nature, going on a hike. And then as you kind of move closer to your period, it really is the time to be like, whoa, let's maybe even have a couple of solid rest days in here. Every woman's going to be different. Every cycle and how she feels, you know, it's going to be different for everyone. But what we do know for sure is that you shouldn't be training 7 days a week every single week. There needs to be a break in there. So wherever your natural kind of ebb and flow is in your own cycle, you need to figure out what that is and start honoring it. But yeah, I think follicular phase is the answer to that, of like push hard there.
How so I have female clients, and I think that I've unfortunately only recently found out about how important it is to train around the menstrual cycle and what phases the woman is in. As a male trainer, what would you recommend is the best way to approach this with female clients and to go about it? So, you know, many of the times, maybe I'm just seeing them 2 to 3 times a week, but I'm sure those weeks fall into different phases. And most of them come to me for resistance training, strength training. How should I modularize and change based on what cycle they're in?
That's a great question. I wish more male trainers kind of asked that. I know when I was in track in high school,
well, hopefully,
it was
I'm
actually kind of seen as like a good thing that you lost your period, because it was like, that means you're training hard. And my like coaches didn't say anything that it was like negative or bad. And this happens a lot. This isn't just my experience. Like, I'm saying this because I've worked in schools kind of all over California, and this is an experience that girls have, is like, my coach said it was fine. Like, in fact, he said it was kind of a good thing. So I think as a male trainer, I think it's really important to assess, like, why is the woman coming to you? What is her true intention with, you know, working on her athleticism? Is it a true desire to just feel stronger and to ameliorate her athleticism or her fitness? Or is there an underlying desire to micromanage her weight, to get down to this ideal body size and shape? That's in quotes, you know, whatever her ideal body size and shape is. And I think it's important to kind of assess, like, is she being active for the right reasons? Because I think when we have a client who comes to us and in all reality, she's just like, well, the trend right now is 6-pack abs with a big booty, and I'm going to do everything I can to get that. Well, then she's most likely going to start doing some damaging stuff to her health to get there, because it's unrealistic for 99.9% of the population to have 6-pack abs and a big booty. So I think, first off, helping her understand that fitness is a beautiful tool in our life, but that it also is something that can be abused, and that rest is super important. I think from like day one, helping them understand that's like, fitness is great. You don't have to do it every day. I think that's like so key, because otherwise people kind of get in that like kind of rat race of just, this is something I have to do every day. And a woman especially can start feeling guilty if she takes a break. And so if you as a trainer can step in and be like, breaks are really healthy. Like, it's going to help you grow muscle mass. It's going to help you reset. It's going to help, your sleep. It's going to help so many areas of your life. If you learn how to take some days off of the gym, then I think that that's really important. And then bringing up the conversation of like, you have another vital sign. So we need to work together. If you notice that you have an uptick, say, especially like in cardio, that tends to really disrupt hormones. So if you kind of have an uptick in cardio and you realize that your period's not there, we should readjust your training.
I think that one of the things that I'm sure a lot of trainers struggle with all, you know, whether it's male or female clients, is they come in eating, you know, 1,200 calories, 1,500 calories, and are doing exactly like you're talking about, working out 7 days a week. And you're like, hey, I need you to eat more. I need you to eat more. We need to, like, you're obviously having some kind of metabolic condition that's not allowing you to lose weight and get to the goals you want. And a lot of them are so scared so frightened to eat more because the fitness industry has been feeding down their throats that like you got to eat 1,500 calories a day, 1,200 calories a day to lose weight. And it's so person specific too. What do you do with your clients to get them more comfortable with eating more food?
Yeah, can I first off say something?
Of course.
With the you have to eat 1,500 calories, I'm like, okay, sure, you'll lose weight. Some people will lose weight, right? And like, you'll lose weight, but you will also start to lose your hair, your menstrual cycle, your digestion, your mental clarity, your sleep. Like, you'll start to lose your health. So I'm like, sure, of course, you can lose some weight by restricting. It's not the smart way. What ends up happening is that you lower your metabolic rate. And so now you'll end up actually gaining a lot more weight, adding in more food than you just having built up your metabolism and worked with your body to just maintain a healthy weight. 1,500 calories, 1,200 calories. I mean, 1,800 calories is not enough for a grown woman, even if she's not being active. There's just no way you can get enough of the calories you need to actually go through all the processes that you need to go through every day. So the women that I work with, they're coming from like the extreme here. Like some of them probably are getting down to like 600 calories a day. Like it's very intense. They've really created this narrative in their mind that food is bad. And now you don't have to be suffering with a full-blown eating disorder to be suffering from disordered eating is what we call it. Just kind of an unhealthy relationship with food, not really understanding the importance of food and being restrictive with how many calories we're eating and stuff. And so I would say a lot of women feel the pressure to like just get a salad at lunch and to lower their calories. With my clients, it's a whole process of really helping them rewire their relationship with food and seeing food in a different way. Because again, they've been taught, whether it was a narrative they created in their mind or a narrative they adopted from society, which is a really easy narrative to adopt, but they've adopted this narrative that food is bad. It's bad. It's here to make you fat, give you pimples, do all this, give you cellulite, do all these things, right? And so they start really fearing food, and it's kind of my job to really uncover what's going on here and how we can get them to see food in a different way so that they understand how to honor their body's true appetite and not to continually suppress their appetite, which again is a narrative we see everywhere in the store. Like, this is guilt-free chocolate brownies. This is like, how to lower your appetite via doing apple cider vinegar or whatever it is, right? There's all these tools and tricks and products and everything to get us to not honor how hungry we actually are.
I love what you said about honoring
which ends
the
up
nutrition your body
resulting in
needs.
more
I love that. Honoring the nutrition your body needs. That's such an amazing phrase. But you're so right about the guilt-free.
It's so key. It's so important.
It's so important. And you're so right about how guilt-free, sugar-free, fat-free is just like demonizing all these foods and like facilitating this awful relationship with food that so many people have.
So I was telling you before this podcast that I just booked a one-way ticket to France. And my mother is French, so I grew up in a very French household. And I grew up with a very healthy relationship to food. We ate very well. And it wasn't until I kind of, went to high school and things started switching. And I now kind of went back to my roots as far as like how my mom taught me how to understand food and nourishment and stuff. But I'm going to France, and it's just such a stark difference over there with how they do food. And it is unfortunately changing a little bit as kind of, the U.S. has kind of monopolized a lot of other countries. But over there, like, I remember when I was 15, I lived there for almost a year. And I told like my grandma that I was vegan. She was like, "What?" And I was like, "I'm vegan." She's like, "What's that?" Like, she had no idea what that is, right? And when I go to the supermarkets over there, I don't see anything on the labels of guilt-free and, sugar-free, salt-free, sodium-free, like, whatever it is. You don't see that over there as much. Like, food is food. And, in fact, the French really love good tasting food. Like my mom was always like, listen, if you're gonna eat sugar, do it right. Go get a chocolate croissant. Enjoy it at the park. Like have a beautiful moment with it, right? Like enjoy the food that you're eating. So it's not about cutting out things for the French. It's all about like good quality and really taking your time with food. So they have a very different kind of scene going on there with food versus America, which it's like, gosh, ever since like 1960s, they started being like, don't eat butter, butter is bad, eat margarine, do low fat, like eat rice cakes, do all those things. Like it's such an American thing that unfortunately has spread to other areas, but we see food in a very negative light over here.
So speaking of traveling and eating healthy, and I think people have this like, when I have clients go on trips, I tell them there's generally 3 ways that they can approach traveling and eating food. The first is very boring, sticking to like very boring, avoiding eating all the good stuff, drinking the drinks you want to do, and just ultimately not having fun on your trip. The second is being like a human vacuum and eating everything and anything in sight. And number 2, or the third one would be just like enjoying yourself in moderation, just like how we should be enjoying ourselves throughout life, in moderation, allowing ourselves to treat ourselves. I think the last two are all okay. Like the last two, eating gluttonously, there's a time and place for that. But if you're on vacation, whatever, you're going to have fun. You're enjoying yourself. You've worked hard. You deserve it. Vacation is all about restfulness. What is your approach with your clients and yourself regarding going on vacation, traveling, and maintaining this healthy relationship with food and eating all the right things?
Yeah, so this is kind of interesting. So the last time I was in France, it was about 5 years ago, and this was at a time where I was still vegan and still very unhealthy. And I spent I was there for probably like 6 months, and I did not eat anything besides like salads and steamed vegetables. Like that literally was it. I didn't enjoy myself at all. I didn't connect with the culture at all because I just wasn't eating the food. I wasn't participating in that. And I look back at like all the photos that I have from my France trip, and it was a lot of just like trying to find like health food stores and just taking pictures of all the like healthy tofu patties that they have and things like that. And so it's really sad to me that I kind of wasted my trip, and that I was so obsessed with clean eating and with, maintaining a certain diet and stuff when I was over there. It really blocked me from just, I was there with about 70 people because it was an internship for school. And everyone would go out and eat with each other, and they were all, when we went to Belgium, everyone was having waffles. When we went to Sweden, we were all having like fish and chips. It was just like they were all enjoying themselves, and I didn't, and I pulled myself out of that. And that's probably one of my biggest regrets that I have, is like being so strict with my food and like not fully enjoying myself, especially while I was traveling. But I'm bringing this up because now here I am, and I'm going to France. And because of, the virus and everything, I haven't been able to go to Europe for a couple years. So this is the first time actually that I'm going to Europe with a very healthy relationship with food. And what's interesting is someone on my Instagram asked me the other day, she was like, are you like super excited to eat all the food in Europe? And I just responded, and I was like, no, but no, not in a like, I'm not excited to eat food, but no in like, I eat really good, yummy food here, so I actually don't really see the difference of going over there and eating yummy good
I love
food.
that.
Like I'm really a big believer in inviting pleasure into your life. It is so important. I call it vitamin P, pleasure. It's such an important aspect of someone's diet, and when we don't have it, that's when we start seeing the cheat days, I binge restrict cycles. That's when we start seeing the unhealthy relationship with food, when I'm like, yeah, you're eating rice cakes and like steamed broccoli and nothing else. Like, of course you're going to start going crazy with food, and you're going to start developing an unhealthy relationship with it. A lot of digestive issues too, funnily enough. So our body, the whole digestive process starts in our mouth, actually starts out of our mouth. It's our nose. If we go into, like, if I go into my mom's house and she's cooking, even if she's just cooking onions, and I step in, I'm like, oh, that smells good. And I just immediately just like, I relax, I lean back, I'm like, oh, that smells good. I take my first bite, I'm like, ooh, wow, that is amazing. I'm literally like, you can see, I'm like opening up, right? I'm like kind of like grounding down, opening up. I'm very receptive to the food. My body's ready to eat at that moment. Saliva is going, with all the enzymes needed to break down food. Hydrochloric acid starts being produced. The body's like, yes, we're going to eat. Now, flip side, you have someone who's like, I'm only supposed to eat 5 grams of boiled protein with steamed broccoli and a little bit of brown rice with no butter or anything on it. And they're sitting there and they're pretty much just like plugging their nose trying to get it down. Well, now they're in the like stress state. They actually literally are activating the sympathetic nervous system state, which is the fight or flight. So your digestive ability goes down nearly 70% in that nervous system state. And their body, their metabolism shuts down because now cortisol is high because you're eating something that you don't actually truly want. And it's so interesting. This is the dynamic eating psychology. This is what I started studying. Like, it's so interesting when you understand someone's relationship with pleasure and how that actually impacts their metabolic rate, digestion, assimilation, calorie efficiency, and all of that. And that's something I think the French have mastered, is that they're like, so we eat good food, but they're mindful of how much they need to eat. They don't, I rarely see anyone in my French family, like, quote unquote, pig out on food. They very sensible, just like moderate portions. They don't have the whole cake. They have just a slice of pie or a slice of cake, whatever. They enjoy it. They take their time. And it's just done in a different way. So back to traveling and stuff like that, I've created my life in a way where I always have a healthy relationship with food, and I always have this abundant mindset with food instead of a restrictive mindset. Now, that doesn't mean I'm eating Twinkies all day. I'm listening to my body, and times, sure, maybe I want a donut, but most of the time I want just satiating, just yummy, delicious food. And so it doesn't, yummy doesn't have to equate to a fried donut. Yummy can be a really beautiful grass-fed steak with, some white rice with a little bit of butter and some grilled asparagus. Like, that can be so satiating for me. But yeah, when I travel, I approach food the same way I approach food here, which is I'm free to eat whatever I want. I want to feel good. So I reach towards food that I know is going to make me feel energized, make me, just make me digest well, all of that. So I'm like mindful of those things, but also not obsessive. Sometimes we just eat something for the sake of eating something. It doesn't necessarily make you feel the best, but that's fine. It passes. Like, I think when you build a really healthy, strong body, those type of things don't impact you. And when you have a very healthy, strong mindset towards food, and a very healthy, just strong mindset in life in general, are you like, let's talk about the real things that matter here. Are you a pessimist or are you an optimist? Are you someone who sees the glass half full or half empty? Are you a growth mindset person? Are you someone who's very present in their life? You're not on your phone all the time, but you're there. Are you out in nature? Like, those are the things that really make someone healthy more so than what's on their plate. So I focus my time on making sure that I have enough community. I have some deep, intimate relationships in my life. I'm doing work that I'm actually truly passionate about. I fill my days with plenty of like nature and sunshine and bare feet on the ground at the beach, jumping in the ocean. I'm healthy, not because of what I eat, but because of my mentality towards life. And I think that that's like key here for everyone to understand, because you focus on that, and I promise you, the little things of what you eat, it doesn't really matter.
I love that. I couldn't have put that better myself. And it's also awesome because you're so passionate about it. It's very, very inspiring. And I think leading into that, what we were talking about, how, just diet culture and everything like that. What do you think are the most egregious or worse myths or themes is not the right word, but trends within the fitness industry that are really, really damaging to not only women, but men and like people as a whole in terms of their health? Like, what do you wish the fitness industry knew and did better regarding that stuff?
So many things. I have like a whole course on like just that. And first off, everything that I have said, besides, the nitty-gritty menstrual cycle stuff, it does definitely go for men as well. I think we hear about like food freedom and a healthy relationship with food, and we automatically think that's like a woman thing. Like, women need to work on that. Trust me, I've worked with my fair share of men in my practice, and they need to work on it too. But the number one thing that I feel like is like the toxic messaging that the diet culture industry has really shoved down our throats is that skinny is healthier. And there are so many reasons as to why this is such a negative message. And I'm not out here like promoting obesity. Let me like be very clear here. But I just want to be very clear that a healthy body is not a size 0. A healthy body can be a wide range of weights for someone in the very kind of normal category, right? Like, I think it's the extremes. America loves extremes. We got to get out of those extremes. Of course, obesity is going to have its implications. Being underweight is going to have its implications. But I think we really we'll look at a woman who's like a size 6 or a size 8, who's just like curvy, but like, healthy, and we look at that and we think, not healthy. Like, she's a size 8. That has to be so unhealthy. And I'm like, ooh, why? Why? Especially when we know all the negative implications of being underweight. And especially for women, like, we are, if you look at, again, speaking about me going to France, if I'm to go in the Louvre and I go in the sculpture section, I'm going to see a bunch of very chiseled men. Like, you have like Michelangelo's David statue, right? Very chiseled, 6-pack abs, square kind of shape, right? But then you look at all the women and they're all voluptuous. They're all curvy. And I'm like, yeah, women are supposed to have a higher, yeah, it's kind of crazy. But so men can do really well with like even like a 6% body fat, 10% body fat. For a woman to be fertile, we're looking at 22 minimum body fat percentage. And I can just say that usually is not a size 0. And that's for healthy hormones. That's for fertility, which is such a great sign into someone's health. And so we've been given this message that, oh, if you're skinny, you're healthier. But in my line of work, I'm like, I just work only with skinny women who are like the most unhealthy people that I've met. And then I look at like my sister who never had an eating disorder, and she's always just been, kind of a just natural, normal body weight. She has a lower belly pooch. She's not like super skinny, but she's not like obese. She's just kind of in kind of a middle range. And she has a monthly menstrual cycle. In fact, she just had a baby.
Congratulations to your sister.
She is super. Sorry, what was that? Oh, I know. The baby's so cute. The baby's like a year old now, but she's still cute even though she's a year. But my sister never did anything to restrict her natural body size and shape, and she's not a size 0, and she's so healthy, like so healthy, mentally and physically. And so, I think we like to just see someone who looks a certain way, and we love to slap the label health on it. But again, like, I'm working in an industry where I have so many Instagram influencers come to work with me. They have like 100K plus people, they're selling all their fitness programs, all of that. They have the 6-pack abs, the thigh gap, everything super tiny, fit, all of that. And then they come to me and they're like, I'm anxious all the time. I don't know what I'm like. I'm literally fearful of food. I'm waking up at 4 a.m. to work out. I'm obsessed with working out. I lost my period. I have digestive issues. I have my, like, all these things happening. And I'm like, okay. And yet we're all glorifying these women. And I'm not saying that someone can't be in a thinner body and be healthy. It's not about that, but I think that's it. It's like, it's not about the body size. That's not what makes someone healthy. There's so many other different metrics of health that we need to look at. So diet culture is all about just get skinny because that's what matters. My work is get healthy because that is what matters. Let the body weight do what it's going to do. And yeah, it's probably not going to be a 6-pack ab because guess what? For women, that requires you to be at a 10% body fat, which is so against evolution, which says if you want to procreate, you got to be at 22.
Yeah.
Minimum. And so Yeah, I think that's like kind of my biggest pet peeve is like people need to understand the difference between like metabolic biomarkers of health versus body weight. And there's such a pressure to have a certain weight when in reality we should be looking at your digestion, your sleep, your mental health. We should be looking at all of those things, even things like your sex drive. Like that says a lot. And a lot of women will just totally tank and go down the drain when they get to too low of a body weight. And so looking at that and body temp, are you super cold all the time? I used to like wear jackets in the middle of summer because I was freezing. Should I have enough body fat on me? And that's super important to regulating your body temperature, which is, I mean, you have a small little range that your body wants to be at. And when you start messing with that, it throws a
Yeah, I
lot of
think
things
that
off.
to your point, we have put so much value into factors of beauty, I'm using quotation marks, that aren't actually things that we should be looking at, that aren't important to being a beautiful person. Whether you're a woman, you're a man, I think we put so much value into how someone looks, which I think, so I think I'm actually curious about whether you still struggle with some of the issues that you have come from. Because I think people sometimes look at us as like health coaches and things like that and think like, oh, they don't deal with these things anymore. Like I myself still deal with body dysmorphia sometimes. I still deal with the urge to binge eat. And it's like a very real thing that when it happens or I'm thinking about it or it's, going on in my head that I have to check in with myself and be like, okay, I recognize what this is. I recognize what it is. And I think that and I'm curious about you, when you go through this journey, when I first started going through this journey, it sounds like you already did it, going through your anorexia and orthorexia. These practices that people put out that are healthy actually, I think, cause these eating disorders and, bad relationships with the food and the practices they do. And it's sad because it's reaffirmed because you're getting this body that society is telling us is beautiful and praise. Yeah, you're getting praise for doing these things that are making you feel worse about yourself. And I think you couldn't have put it better yourself that you should really strive for doing the things that make you healthy, opposed to the things that you should look a certain way. So going off that, I'm curious, how much of these things do you still struggle with on a daily, day-to-day basis or week-to-week basis, or do you go through phases?
Yeah, I think it's really important to, like, I'm glad you brought that up, that, like, we're all humans in the end of the day, and we're all on our own journeys with all of this, and just because someone is in a certain position doesn't mean that they never suffer with anything. I think, someone who kind of really portrays this is Jordan Peterson, if you know who he is. He's, like, this big kind of, like, he just blew up the past couple years, big psychologist. He's on all of these huge forums, taught at, all these prestigious universities and all of that, all about like self-development and having a good, beautiful life. And he's been like dealing with depression his whole life. And he's like on medication for depression. And so, I think it's just important to remember that we all have our own journeys and no one is perfect. As far as my personal relationship with food and body, I think that my kind of coming out of this very disordered relationship with this was so extreme. We do what's called like kind of the all-in process where you're just, I gained so much weight so quickly and I really like tore down every single food rule I ever had and I stopped exercising completely for multiple months that, I really feel 100% reset with that, where it's like, wow, I learned how to deal with me gaining like 50 plus pounds in the matter of just like 2 months. I learned how to deal with that and I learned how to still see the beauty in who I was as a person. I learned how to really dive deep and like, okay, how do you get grounded in this moment? How do you still make your life beautiful? How do you still cultivate happiness from within you? Because unlike what we think, happiness is an inside job. It's not an outside thing. This is completely my internal state of being. And I feel like I just was thrown into it in such a huge, just like boom kind of moment that I feel like I just completely snapped out of it. And I fortunately actually don't deal with any of those things anymore because I kind of like, I don't know, I tell my clients this. I was like, because everyone who I work with, their biggest fear is gaining weight. It's like they're super, super underweight, but their fear is gaining weight. Even though they know it will equate to health, it will equate to well-being, all of that. They're so fearful of it. And I was telling a client this the other day, I was like, you know what the best part about gaining weight was that I no longer fear gaining weight. Like, my body can change 10 pounds the next month, and I'm like, I've been through that before. I still understand how to have a happy life. I don't put all of my eggs in one basket, right? I'm not just happy because my body looks a certain way. I learned that lesson. And so I really, yeah, I don't know. I was in this like addiction to deprivation for such a long time. And I was in this like really strong restrictive energy with everything in my life. I was constantly saying no to opportunities and to food and to experiences and all of that. Saying no to pleasure, saying no to sleep, saying no to all these things. And I really have just come to a point in my life where I'm like, that is so unattractive. I can't. Like, it's so unattractive to me now that I've like kind of drinking the honey over here in the kind of the land of abundance. I'm like, this just feels so good that I'm more energetically aligned with that. And I do talk a lot about energetics because I feel like it's so key to understand that aspect of this journey. But my energy is definitely swaying over here. So the idea of over exercising or of restricting myself or of just like making myself lose a bunch of weight really quickly, really just doesn't even resonate with me or come into the forefront of my mind ever. So fortunate, but I have my other issues. Don't worry, not perfect at all. But as far as like having to try and navigate food and body issues, I actually luckily just don't deal with that anymore. It's not my weak spot anymore. I'll put it that way. I have some other weak spots, but
Stephanie Buttermore, I think is her name, did videographed her whole process of doing the all-in approach.
I did the same process
I think
as her.
For anybody that's struggling with this, I think it's such a emotional and amazing journey to watch on her YouTube. And I can only imagine how emotional and it was for you, and how it's beautiful to hear how it got, how you feel about your body and your relationship with food now after going through that. And I think so many other people should do that as well. And I think that's amazing. It makes me so happy for you. That I only have a couple more questions for you. I actually have a lot of questions, but I do want to know your opinion on birth control and for women, and training, and what. Because personally, I think that as a man, and if the male birth control came out, I don't think I would take it because I don't want to be putting extra hormones in my body. So I'm really curious what your idea about and your approach to clients with, I know some of them are coming to you already without a menstrual cycle, but I'm curious what, once they get, maybe a normal menstrual cycle, how do you feel about birth control?
Yeah, well, I would say a good 70% of my clientele come to me because they got messed up because of birth control. Birth control. So think about it this way. So our bodies are designed to function in these certain cycles, like I was talking about in the beginning. The whole process of ovulation is a very healthy process for a woman to go through. It elevates her body temperature. It creates a lot of lubrication, which keeps her like that whole area just nice and clean and good and healthy. There's progesterone receptors kind of all over our body, on our heart, all of that. And so when we don't go through the process of ovulation, progesterone isn't created. Progesterone is created because of ovulation. And so now we're living in a place where we don't have progesterone, which means this not only our menstrual cycle and everything's being all wacky, but everything else in our body's really suffering because we don't have the progesterone we need. Because like I said, there's progesterone receptors on all other cells of our body. So what birth control in effect is doing, it is literally stopping the communication between the hypothalamus and the ovaries, saying, don't ovulate. I just explained why ovulation is so important. Girls come to me because they're not ovulating and they're like, I need to be ovulating because this is X, Y, and Z. This is the whole list of things that go wrong when you stop ovulating. It's really damaging to someone's health. And so, I highly recommend women to get off of birth control and to learn to regulate their cycles, to understand their cycles, understand when they're fertile. You're only fertile like 4 days of the month. So everyone's like so fearful. Oh my gosh, I can get pregnant at every time. I'm like, you can only get pregnant when you're ovulating, which is one day of the month, and then you have like, you know, a couple days of just like be careful around that day. And so I think women need to understand their cycles better, and they need to understand how important it is that they are menstruating. Like, it is super, super important. And even if you get a period on birth control, because someone will still bleed, you take, you know, you take off a couple days and you have a withdrawal bleed. That's not, you never ovulated. So it's simply just a forced withdrawal bleed, which gives you none of the benefits of ovulation, which is kind of the star of the show. And so, yeah, that's kind of my thoughts on it. Get off of it, learn about your cycle.
What about women that take birth control because they have like a really heavy period or a painful period? What do you think is the best practices for them to avoid those things and still be off birth control?
Totally. So birth control is a Band-Aid solution. Your body's giving you the sign that something is off, something is misaligned, you're missing some, you know, nutrients, or you have unbalanced blood sugar because you've been maybe intermittent fasting, or you've been, you know, you've been eating kind of chaotically, or you've been, say, like, not eating a good balance of like protein, carbs, and fats. And so blood sugar is off and all these things are off, right? Digestion's off because you've been eating foods that aren't nutrient dense. Say, like, I'm just eating a bunch of rice cakes instead of eating like food, like meat, potatoes, like vegetables, fruit, all those type of things. And so if a woman comes to me and she's dealing with hormonal issues, first off, I understand that it really, really sucks, and I understand why she would want to lean towards birth control. It seems fast, easy, quick, efficient, but birth control doesn't come with no side effects. I think that's important to note too. A lot of women experience really low sex drive on birth control. A lot of women will experience bone pain. So a lot of issues can start happening. A lot of inflammation in the body, a lot of water weight retention, a lot of those type of things. So I would work with a woman to get her to balance out her health and deal with the root cause of why is your body having really bad menstrual cycles. Menstrual cycle should be easy. It shouldn't be hard. I could be on my period and not even know. Like, it shouldn't be something that's like this, oh my gosh, I'm going through these wild mood swings. Like, yeah, there's a energy shift, but the wild, crazy mood swings and the severe bloating and the really bad cramping, those are all signs that something's off. Your nervous system is dysregulated. You're too stressed. Maybe you're exercising too much, or you're working, you know, like 8 to 9 every day, and you're not giving your body rest. Taking a pill is not doing anything to actually just support your body then to getting back to normal.
Yeah, that's actually really interesting, because I think all those things have been normalized in today's media, whether it's like movies, TV shows. It shows like, and they almost make like light of it, a woman having a really hard period, pain, or like being moody, needing, you know, like you said earlier, like the chocolates or the donuts, but they make it like very normalized to have extreme menstrual cycle or extreme periods. Yeah, it shouldn't be that way. A period can be a true joy, honestly, and I know a lot of women hate this right now, like they really do. And again, I'm not saying that like any sort of, you know, naturally these cramps, naturally there's, again, the little bit of mood shift, but these extremes, well, we can do something about that. And my last question is, if, you know, I know you're going through your issues, and I'm sure your family was watching it happen and, you know, trying to step in and try to help you in any way they can. So for maybe listeners that are watching a family member, a loved one, a friend go through a similar experience that you did, what is the best thing that they could do to help?
One, be a good example of what it means to be a well-nourished, healthy individual. So don't be engaging in diet talk. Don't be saying things like, oh, I ate so much, I need to go run tomorrow. Like, just those little things like that just really perpetuate an unhealthy relationship for a lot of people with food. So yeah, making sure you're not saying certain things like, oh, I had such a guilty pleasure last night. I had some ice cream. It's like, let's stop thinking that ice cream's guilty. First off, it's simply just milk, egg yolk, and like some sugar. But sugar can just be metabolically enhancing. It's just glucose and your body runs off of it. So it's like we demonize these things really for no reason. So I think being really healthy yourself, like the people that helped me the most in my life, I'll put it this way, was like one, my younger sister. She helped me a lot because she never judged me. She never thought I was like less than for dealing what I was dealing with. Rather, she was there to fully support me, and she was there to constantly show me what being a well-nourished woman looked like. I'm pretty sure my sister gained like 40 pounds with me when I went through my journey, because she was like, yes, let's go to France. And let's like, well, there was one point where I did go to France, and we did like, I tried to eat a lot more food, and my sister kind of took one for the team, and she kind of gained a lot of weight because she was like, dessert, let's go get more dessert. But I'm not saying that everyone necessarily has to do that, but she was a champ, and really just being someone that I could really just look at and be like, wow, you really don't care that you had carbs today for dinner, do you? She's like, no, I didn't even think about that. And it was just good to see that. So I think that's good. And then just, I think everyone in this world, it's a crazy world. And I think the last couple of years have really showed us that like this life is crazy. And oh my gosh, I have so much empathy and sympathy for people who deal with mental health issues, for people who are just dealing with life issues, honestly. It's just like everyone, we're all dealing with stuff. And I think something that we really need more of in our world is just good, intimate connections with people, being vulnerable with others, opening up, having deep conversations with people, and just getting support, creating a community that is there to be there for you, and you vice versa to them. And I think we need more community. We're in America, and we're so individualistic. It's all about me and the American dream, and I can do this. And sure, there's elements of that where I understand, like, yeah, that's good. Go out, make a name for yourself, but also do not disregard that we as humans have been living in community for thousands of years, and it's a really important element of our health. And so I think I should say right now, even like that's a priority for me. So if I was to go back to myself, I'd be like, stop isolating, start creating community. Me right now, my biggest, like hands down thing that I focus on in my life, community. Who am I spending time with? Who are in my close circle of friends? Super, super, super important for me, because those are the people I can be vulnerable with. Those are the people I can open up with. And in return, I get a heck of a lot of support. And so that allows me to grow and to evolve and to transform and change, because I feel like I'm being held in a safe container by people who love me.
Love that. And I hope that inspires or helps some listeners that may be seeing this happen. Chloe, I learned so much today. Thank you so much for this. I'm going to go back and listen to this at least 3 times and take notes. If people want to find you and learn more, where can they do that?
Yeah, I think there's 2 places. Kind of first place is Instagram. If you have one, that's really good. I'm there every day, and that's just at Flow with Chlo. There's 2 W's in there, so Flow with a W and then WITH. And then same thing for YouTube. And I do have a podcast that's on pause right now, the Feed Your Flow podcast. But if you just find my Instagram, you get links to everything. So might as well just find me there, and you can say hi. I
definitely
love
check her out. She's got a lot of
DMs.
Fantastic information on her Instagram. All right, thank you, Chloe. Chloe. Thank you everyone for listening. I hope I have inspired and motivated you. I hope your inner fat kid is more proud of you today than they were before this. Fitness is a journey everyone should start, but no one should finish. So whether you're continuing or starting yours, I am so glad that we get to be a part of each other's. With Fitness, Noah.